Welcome to DriveCore. I'm Nathan, and today I want to show you my new daily driver, and it's not particularly special by any means. Heck, you may even confuse it for a Toyota 4Runner, but no, it's a 2001 Nissan Pathfinder, also known as the R50 Pathfinder by enthusiasts. And in case you're wondering, yes, an Infiniti QX4 is practically the same thing. In a world that's sadly run by crossovers and unnecessarily huge pickup trucks, where does an old school SUV like this fit in? Well, to be honest, it doesn't. It just blends in with the rest of them now. But what makes this vehicle special is its capability. And no, it doesn't need a bunch of fancy badging to tell you how capable it is off-road. It just simply does it. If you know anything about Nissan, you're probably disappointed with the quality of its recent vehicles, especially after its merger with the French car company Renault back in the early 2000s. But this was one of the last vehicles under the control of Nissan. But does that make it any better or any more desirable? Well, that I'm not quite sure of, as I only owned it for about 8 months. Despite having lived with this vehicle for a short amount of time, I still want to give you an in-depth review of what it's been like to live with so far. So let's start off the review with the exterior of the vehicle. If you're like me, you like those old school SUVs that were very boxy and very rugged and almost Volvo-esque in their shaping, but this one was no exception. This was based off the first generation, which is basically a shoebox, but this one got the nice kind of swooping lines to make it more modern. Now, I like what Nissan Pathfinder did with the rear door handle, and actually they took it from the first generation Pathfinder and they put it up here rather than down here like most vehicles. Now, this does confuse a lot of people the first time. Instinctively, they want to think that the door handle's down here, but no, it's up here, and I kind of get a laugh out of it every single time. Shortly after buying this vehicle, I decided to invest in a front brush guard for it, which I got off Basic Marketplace for about $100. And I can say it's definitely paid for itself by now for the many times I've gone off-roading. It's definitely a well worth investment. For this interior, it's very, well, bland because it's an early 2000s car interior. And actually, to be more accurate, it's actually an interior from the 1990s because this generation did start out in 1996 and ran to 2004. But it did get some refreshes along the way, mostly just for the steering wheel alone, but also some other nice little touches as well. Now, in terms of features and amenities in this trim, especially the SE, you did get some nice stuff like this nice leather seating with the perforations down the center. And then also you got the Bose sound system with a 6 CD changer and cassette deck. And if you don't know what those are, I'm afraid you're missing out on something very nostalgic and very important. But that's okay because everything else in this interior is as it should be. It's a very simple interior. Everything is well laid out and in arm's reach, unlike some interiors today where you have buttons galore. In terms of storage space and cubbies in this vehicle, there's definitely not a lot by today's standards, but you do get a nice 2-tiered center console with a 12-volt power outlet. And then moving down the rest of the center here, you do have 2 cup holders, one which fits most drinks just right, and the other one which is a bit too big, maybe will fit a big gulp or perhaps a thermos, but otherwise it's rendered useless. And then moving down the rest of the center here, you do have a removable ashtray with a built-in light, which the previous owner loved to use, I think, more than anything else in this vehicle. And then you also have a little tray off to the side of the shifter, which perhaps you can fit a cell phone or something small there. And then up on the center here, you do have, well, basically your climate controls and then your sound system, heated seats, which is nice in the front here. And then you also got something which was really cool from the Infiniti QX4, and that was the electric transfer case, which means you can electronically switch from 2-wheel drive to auto, which is all-wheel drive, and 4 high and 4 low without having to manually do it through a shifter. And then on the steering wheel here, it's rather basic. There's not really anything except for the controls for the Bose sound system. And if you did get the top model, you did get the automatic headlights, which was kind of nice, and also the memory seat. I'm now sitting in the rear seat of the vehicle, and I have to say that it's very comfortable and kind of surprising because the seats are very plush, but they do sit rather low, which is okay, but because the size of this vehicle is very short and it's not very tall, that's excusable. But the front seat here is set to my position. I do have quite a bit of space for my knees, but again, no real space for my feet to go underneath the seat. But again, that's okay. In terms of creature comforts, there's nothing worth bragging about back here, but if this were the Infiniti QX4, which again is the luxury version of this car, you could brag about having heated rear seats, at least in the Canadian version anyways. Otherwise, you do get some other nice little creature comforts back here, such as standard cup holders down here, a dome light control up here with its own separate controls from the front, also a center armrest back here, which is very comfortable, but it's a little small for sure. And then not to mention overall that the qualities of the back materials here are really nice, especially on the doors. You do get soft touch materials right here, which is really cool because even some vehicles today don't even get that. Another nice little thing I like that Pathfinder kind of did and made it seem like more like a truck was putting your oh crap handle up here rather than over here. So that was pretty neat as well. Another little cool thing about the back seats is yes, they do fold down, but also they recline as well, just like I'm about to show you right now. So if you do want to relax on a long distance trip, you can definitely do that. Folding the rear seats in this vehicle is definitely a process, at least compared to modern vehicles where you just simply lift the latch and it just folds flat instantly. No, this one actually has a bit of a process to it. And that involves taking out the rear headrest, and don't lose it like the previous owner did, because I actually had to buy these again. So once you take out the rear headrest, you can then lift up the bottom cushion right here, which exposes the jack and other tool accessories for the vehicle. And then you then have to fold down the seat flat. And there you have it. That's folding the seats in this vehicle. And actually it's very common for a lot of these SUVs of this era to do it this way, and that's fine. But the one problem is though, especially when I was trying to camp in this vehicle, I did notice that I didn't have quite enough space to fit a full-size air mattress in here. You can definitely do that, but you would have to remove this bottom cushion if you want to fit like a queen air size mattress or something like that, just to make it that much better. But regardless, it was still comfortable to sleep in nonetheless. The last thing I want to show you is the rear cargo area, so let's go do that. I decided to save the most cool and unique feature for last, and that is the liftgate. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why is that so special? And the reason that is that this is a liftgate that has a back glass which opens separately from the rest of it. Meaning you just take this key right here and open it just like this. Now again, maybe not so special to you, but a lot of vehicles and SUVs don't even have this option anymore, so it's kind of a unique feature if you ask me. Now pulling this bottom latch here just gets you back into the rear cargo area of the vehicle, which by today's standards is nothing special, but believe me, there is quite a bit of space back here to put your things such as camping material and whatever odd stuff you want to put back here. In terms of a rear cargo area, you do get quite a bit of space back here. You do have this nice retractable privacy cover right there, which you can easily remove, but it is a bit awkward to do it. And then over to the right here, you do have one storage cubby, which would probably fit like a first aid kit. Under here, you do have a little bit of a storage cubby, which you can fit some really shallow items, such as jumper cables and ratchet straps if you like. But my favorite thing back here is actually the 12-volt power outlet, what I think is just genius, because some vehicles today don't even have that. But if you want to put a cooler back here, you could definitely do that. Well, that wraps up the inside of the vehicle. I think it's now time to get it out on the road and give you my driving impressions of this vehicle after now living with it for 8 months. Before I get too far in depth with my driving impressions of this vehicle, I want to talk about what powers this tank, and that is the infamous VQ35 engine, which came out in 2001 for this model year for this vehicle. And that replaced the engine which started out in this generation, was the VG33 back in 1996. But a lot of people complained that that was underpowered, so they decided to give you this engine that had 240 horsepower, and it seemed like it was the best thing since sliced bread. However, a lot of people complain now that this engine is not as bulletproof as the VG33. Honestly, I can't really say because I haven't owned a VG33, but I'll take their word for it. Now I want to talk about fuel economy for a moment, and well, you may want to skip this part because yes, sadly it's not going to score you any brownie points with Greta Thunberg, but you have to remember when this vehicle came out back in the mid-90s and early 2000s, gas was extremely cheap compared to today, and fuel economy, well, unless you're Al Gore, you didn't really care. But that's to say this vehicle got about 16 liters per 100 kilometers, or about 15 miles per gallon for those of you that are living in the United States. which by today's standards is god-awful. No one would buy a vehicle that would probably get this low gas mileage today, especially if it was a brand new vehicle. You don't buy a car like this because you care about fuel economy numbers. You buy it because you want something that can go on the back logging roads and that can make it through a snowstorm and sit slightly above 2 cars in traffic. For a vehicle that's over 20 years old, it still handles really well, surprisingly actually, because it is riding on original suspension. And this design of the second generation is actually a unibody design, and it does drive more like a car, which is nice for a lot of people, and that's what people really expect now of modern day SUVs. In terms of get up and go, well, it does go at its own pacing. And because this vehicle weighs as much as a brick house and has this old school 4-speed automatic transmission, it's not very quick off the line. After owning this vehicle for about 8 months, it has been pretty good so far, but it has needed some little things here and there, but what else can you expect when you buy a vehicle at auction? I've taken this thing camping and off-roading and on long distance trips in the last 8 months that I've owned it, and I haven't had any really issues with it. It starts up every time, and that really amazes me because my previous experience with Nissan, when I had my 2008 Nissan Altima, which I don't really want to talk about, it was a horrible experience, and that kind of put me away from Nissan. But this one really changed my outlook on Nissan, how I view it now on their older vehicles. With the prices of used cars right now on the market being pretty absurd, especially for SUVs, this one's actually pretty well put, because a lot of vehicles like this are going for, well, tens of thousands of dollars, but this vehicle right here, you can get for about $4,000 Canadian. Now, a lot of you probably want to shoot me for telling you this, but it is one of the best hidden gems on the market. And I know some of you want a Toyota 4Runner or a Jeep Cherokee XJ, and yes, those are definitely really good vehicles, but I feel like this vehicle doesn't get enough credit as it should. It's definitely a hidden gem. But why is that? Why does no one want this vehicle? Why does it not as popular? Is it because of the engine? Is it because of the way it looks? Or is it just because it's a Nissan? No one knows. But what I can say is that in the time that I've owned it, it's definitely been a good vehicle for me. Now, of course, it's not perfect. There's things that have to be fixed on it because it is 20 years old after all. But nonetheless, though, I've really enjoyed it. And actually, I look forward to having more years with this vehicle. I want to hear from you in the comment section below to what your thoughts are on the Nissan Pathfinder and why is it such a hidden gem in the used car market, especially for SUVs in this price range. Well, that wraps up today's video review of the Nissan Pathfinder and my ownership experience with it so far. Now, I just want to take a moment to say thank you very much for watching today's video. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, well, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button. That's why they put it below the screen. You hit it, you're subscribed to the channel. That way you get more automotive reviews such as this and DIYs on my channel. And also, while you're down there, be sure to hit the thumbs up button as well, so that lets me know that you did in fact enjoy today's video. And until next time, take care. Bye now.